Okay, great. So let's go through a little sample lesson here. We'll go through the hungry rule. Do I have someone who wants to be the student for this lesson? Any volunteers?
Student.
We can switch off. Who wants to be the student for the first part?
No, I'll do that.
Okay, great. All right, so to start off with, I'm just going to ask you, what is your favorite type of dessert?
Ooh, I like chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Great.
Yeah.
You have anything with your chocolate cake?
Oh, maybe vanilla ice cream.
Delicious. All right. So, if you are all by yourself and you're really hungry, are you going to have a big slice of chocolate cake with vanilla ice cream?
Yeah, maybe the whole cake.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. Now, what if you're with a friend and you only have that one big slice of cake? Are you going to eat it all to yourself, or are you going to share and take a smaller piece?
I'd probably share.
There we go. Very nice. And if kids don't answer quite as politely as you can always remind them of what the polite thing to do would be. All right, so our vowels are really hungry. So no matter what situation they're in, they're going to be really hungry. All right, so we're going to scoot that over first. Here we go. Here's our A. It's super hungry. We want to add a S ending. Now, our options are little s or big. If the vowel's all by itself and is really hungry, do you think it wants a big piece or a little piece? Anyone can answer here.
Well, I guess if it's hungry, a big piece.
Very good. All right, so then what would this word say?
Bass.
Very nice. All right. But here's the thing. Sometimes the vowels aren't all by themselves. So even though they're hungry, they have a friend with them. And if their friend is there, what should they do? Should they take a big piece all to themselves, or should they take a little piece?
Little piece.
Very nice. So then we take our little ch compared to our big ch here. And what would this say?
Wrench.
Very nice. All right, so in your manual here, you'll have multiple examples. I tend to do a couple, switching off between adding a little piece or adding a big piece. Okay, so then after you do your new concept, then we move on and we put out nonsense words. So this is the part you were asking about before. So you're given lists of words, and on this one they are numbered. Later they're just kind of longer lists. And what you want to do is you switch off between you putting out words and telling the kid what words to put out. So when you're putting out words, you do not want to tell the kid what the word says. You want them to sound it out for themselves. So for hungry rule, it's a bit more interactive. Here we go. We have our E all by itself. It's really hungry. It's a vowel. So does it want a big piece or a little piece at the end?
Well, okay. Well, I know the answer. I'm just trying to think of how I want to ask you the question as the tutor student here.
Right. Yeah.
So we're making nonsense words here. So this is a pure. It's just applying the rule to, to letters and words. Basically, it's not trying to make any connection with actual words, obviously.
So these are all going to be phonic words. Every now and then a real word will sneak in there just based on letter combinations. But in general, yeah, these are just nonsense words. It's about practicing the sounds. So that's why they're nonsense words. If they were real words, kids might automatically recognize them, but they're not. There's no way they can recognize them because they're not real. So they're kind of forced to sound them out then.
So ask me the question again.
All right, so the E's all by itself. Does it want a big piece or a little piece?
It wants a big piece.
Very nice. Okay, another little thing that has come up on the hungry roll occasionally is kids will get confused because there's a friend before it, but that doesn't count. The one before it's not the friend. The friends are only the ones who come after. So I told one kid, these are the parents. They're just hanging out there. They're always there.
So I have another question for you, because as I recall it, when Steve showed this on his board, on the Tatum board, the other day, he had the S and the S
Yeah.
together, and then the K and the CK together, and et cetera, et cetera.
So that's how it was on the real board. On here, you're not allowed to put like multiple things. There also used to be like a little E in the corner. It was different, but the board wouldn't let me set it up like that on here. They were like, you only have 1K, you got to put it up there. So for what I do, actually, I think that was before we started recording. I showed you guys the sounds. So first, before you teach the Hungry Rule, you just want to make sure they know their sounds like we did in the beginning. So I put out little f, big f, and I do that for all of them, especially for the later ones, like little G, which is the GE, and big J. So that's just how I do it to teach them the sound. But after that, they're just in the corner. And that's our new way of doing it with the online board.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, great. So after I put out words for the kids and have them read them, then we switch. And I tell them what words to put out by giving them remote control of my screen. So I would say the word zitch, and they would have to sound it out. Z, I. Now the I is all by itself. It wants a big piece. Ch, zitch. And then I would have them change it to zetch, and they would go z. That's not eh. Let's bring down the eh. Zetch.
So that's step tracking?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Can you do that again, or just make sure you?
Yeah, we can keep going. Yeah, so now step tracking is done with the mouse. So that'll be different than the videos was done with a finger. We can't do that anymore. So we just do it with the mouse and the sounds. So we have z-etch. We want to change it to z-e-j. That's not j. Let's go get our j. We still want the big one because the e is still all by itself. And then we have zedge. We want to move on. We want zek. We go z-e. That's not k. Let's go get our k. And there it is. All right. Do you guys have any other questions about that? Okay. So then for spelling, I do spelling different ways depending on the student and the student's circumstance and where they are. Sometimes I'll have the student spell on paper or a whiteboard and then hold it up to show me. Sometimes I'll do a Google Doc and the kid will spell on there using the shared screen feature. So for spelling, we use real words. So this is our chance to practice what we just learned using our real words.
So when you do a Google Doc using the share feature, can they type in the letters on that document?
So I actually do it two different ways. So kids who have Chromebooks cannot take control of someone else's screen. So then they will share their screen with me and type it out. But kids who don't, I share my screen and then I give them remote control to type. Yeah, so it kind of just depends on the student and the circumstance for that part. Yeah. Alrighty, so that is our Hungry Rule lesson. Next up, what we have are our suffixes and blends. So we can go through our blends. Do I have another person who wants to be a student for a minute here? You get to practice some sounds with me. Okay, how about we all answer together? Here we go. We're going to put out our normal word. So could unmute to help me read this word. Let's go bit by bit. What's the first sound going to say?
Yeah.
So this says all together
fit.
Nice. So this is a normal word, but now we're going to make it into a blend. So if we bring down this, what does this sound at the end say?
Sit.
Good. So those kind of combined into a st. So then when you put it into this word here, what do you have? Ist. Good. All right. So for some kids, blends are pretty simple. It just gives them a little practice. For other kids, blends can be kind of complicated. They can just be harder to say. And so then you just really have to break it down, and then get them to be able to say the combo st sound. Sounds simple, but every now and then it's not. All right, so we've got our blends and our suffixes lesson. So the words for this lesson are for the blends, but we also want to start introducing the suffixes bit by bit. If the kid is really getting it, you can do half one day, half the other. It's a little harder for them. You can introduce them slower.
So our front blends, those are in a different lesson?
Front blends are in a different lesson. I mean, they're taught quite similarly though. You sound out a normal word and then you compare it to a blend word. Mm-hmm. And then you just practice in those. Yeah. And in general, those aren't super challenging. It just, unless there's a pronunciation issue.
Yeah, well, I have a student who is pretty good at these ending blends, but the front blends, sled and stick and skate, and he just has trouble with those.
Yeah, so that's one of those things where you just have to spend a little more time in the lesson, because you want to move on as soon as the kid gets it. But if they don't get it, then it's good to keep reviewing. And that's why we also have so many words in the nonsense word section. I know it's kind of hard to see, but there are a lot of rows. So in general, the first day, I would just do like a row or half a row here for putting out words, and then a row, half a row there for saying the words. But if the kid needs extra practice, then you move on to the next row the next day. There are some higher level lessons like diphthongs where I always have kids do multiple days of that because that one's complicated. But for some of the other ones, if the kid gets it, you just do it for a day or no more than 2 and then move on. But if the kid needs more time, sometimes it can take up to a week. So it just, you have to see how they're doing and respond to that. All right, so the way I teach, do you have a question? All right. The way I teach the suffixes all have definitions. Now it can be kind of tricky for kids to memorize these definitions. So I like to give them examples and they fill in the example. So for example, you say, if you have one book and you get another book, then you have book, what would you say?
Books.
Very good. Yeah, so that is the plural. And then the difference between these two, both of these are plurals. This is for if you have a one-syllable word that stays a one-syllable word, or a double-syllable word stays a double-syllable word. Whereas here, this is if you have a one-syllable word that turns into a two-syllable word when it becomes plural. For example, you have a box, but then when it's plural, it's boxes, and it becomes a two-syllable word. So that's why you would use the ES instead. So I have these for all of them, so we'll just go on through. I say the definition. So this is the act of. The act of a run is run. Very good. This one is past tense. So after you go for a walk, you say that you walk.
Walked.
Good. Now this one can be pronounced in 3 different ways. D, t, or ed, depending on the word. And I just remind kids of that because that gets confusing with spelling later on. All right. This one is one who does something. So one who runs is a run.
Runner. So can I back up for a second on the ED? So you don't teach the rule for when it's t, when it's d, and when it's ed at this point?
Not in the beginning. I just introduce that it can be pronounced different ways.
Okay.
All right. So can also mean more than. So if you're more big, then you're big.
Bigger.
All right. This one means the most. If you see a bunch of flowers and you think one is the most pretty, you say it's the prettiest.
Prettiest.
All right, this one is pronounced E. A day full of rain is rain.
E.
Rain.
This means full of. This one also means full of, which is pretty simple. If you walk into a room that's full of wonder, you say it's wonder.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Very nice. This one means like. So if you're walking down the street like you're happy, or walking happy.
Happily.
Happily.
Less means without. If you're without a heart, your heart.
Heartless.
Nice. Meant is the tricky one in my opinion. Meant means the result of. So the result of developing is development. Very nice. So this one can be hard because while you're doing it, it's the ing, it's the act of. While it's happening, it's developing. But when it's over, then you have the development. All right. This one is going to be quality of. The quality of being kind is kind.
And kindness.
Yes.
Very good. And an means made of. If you have something that's made of wood, it is wood.
Wooden.
Nice. All right, so I try to switch these up with different examples because otherwise kids will just kind of memorize the examples. And also, as they get good at them, change the order as well, just to keep them thinking about it. But yeah, that's how I teach the suffixes. So we give them the definition, and then they fill in an example.
So what other examples do you have for en?
Something that's made of gold is golden.
Golden. Okay.
Okay, great. So let's see. Those are our nouns and suffixes. I'm gonna go back to the first lesson real fast here. The main point of the first lesson is, as we say, cleaning up sounds, but it also introduces open and closed syllables, which is talked about more in a later lesson, but it's introduced here along with just learning about syllables and tapping out syllables, which is something I found most kids have already learned, but still it can be fun to learn about tapping. So you go cat, bat, rat. Those are one syllable words. You tap one time. Whereas two syllable words, basket, magnet, cabin, you tap multiple times. So you just practice that with the kid a little bit. And again, that's something we will come back to later, since in the beginning you're focused on one syllable words, and then in later concepts you learn how to do multi-syllable words.
And so if you've worked with the student to tap out one syllable words like at, bat, would you then work, because I like the idea of working with your fingers for syllable work and maybe tapping the shoulder, arm for sound work. Is that
Yeah, you can
make sense?
do that. Yeah, I guess I tend to focus more on the step tracking portion of sounding out things bit by bit,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
especially if you have a more interactive kid, some kids are more,
Mhm.
they learn better by using their body and being involved. So then that would be a great thing to do, yeah.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Alrighty, so yeah, so a part of concept one, we practice tapping, and then we talk about open versus closed syllables. So if a vowel is at the end of the word all by itself, it can run a long way and say its name.
Mhm.
So the name of this vowel is going to be A. So what's this going to say?
Ray.
Very good. All right, now if there is a consonant after the vowel, it's closing it in. It can no longer run a long way. So it wants to say its short sound instead of its long sound. So what would this say?
Rat.
Very good. All right, and then you give a couple examples for that one. And it's just good to kind of get it in their heads early. Then in later lessons, for example, like vowel tag and the open, close, silent E, it's important to point out open versus closed sounds. And sometimes kids will also come in and say the long vowel sounds, I, E, A, U, O. And I always go, great job, those are the long sounds. Now we're gonna work on the short sounds to review the I, A. All right, so one more example of open closed. Here the vowel is open, there's nothing after it. It can run a long way and say its name. So it wants to say
Low.
very nice. And now it's closed in, has nowhere to go. So it has to say its short sound and it would say
Lots.
very nice. All right, so yeah, that's a little part of concept 1 that we pop in there. Does anyone have any questions or any concepts in particular that they wanted to review today? Alrighty. Well, let's see then. What have you guys learned up to?
We did concept 9, bully B, 9B, I think.
Oh, okay. So you learned the
bully
bully rule.
Yeah, we did the bully rule and using the silent E.
Oh, okay. And then, yeah, concept 9, silent E. Okay, great. All right. So let's do a little practice bully rule then. Because that one, I would say the hungry rule and the bully rule are pretty important spelling rules. And can be a little more complicated, but they also have their fun explanations, which can make it more entertaining to teach. All right, so before you learn the bully rule, you have to make sure the kid knows all of their suffixes. And then you learn about which of the suffixes are bullies. So these are the ones that start with vowels. Anything that starts with a vowel is a suffix, and then of course the Y is a sometimes one because it's sometimes a vowel. Oh,
So can I ask you a question? Do you, this is a spelling rule, right?
yes.
So do you make a difference when you're introducing concepts as, okay, now we're going to do this is a spelling concept. Is that helpful or does that confuse?
With most kids, no, because for them, they have to, kind of learn all of them, and they do like reading of the spelling words, and then they spell the spelling words, and they do reading of the reading words, and then they spell the reading words. So I don't tend to pick that up. With more advanced students, like Start 4s, there's a whole advanced checklist thing that I don't know whether or not you guys have already covered, but the basis of that is that with a more advanced kid who knows how to read somewhat better already, then you go through the reading rules first, and then you go back and do the spelling rules when you have time.
Okay, yeah, I think we have talked about that checklist.
So that's more, the difference between them is more important for the more advanced kids. With the younger kids, they need to learn both spelling and reading equally. And yeah, and obviously there's also like reading these spelling words in books. These will come up and they might wonder why it looks that way. And then they'd like to recognize when they see something they've learned in their book as well. So that can be fun. All right, so let's start off with our classic bully rule word. What's this gonna say?
Ren.
Good. All right, now we want to add this ending. Does this ending start with a vowel?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it a bully?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so if you were to add this, then the bully would make this vowel say its name, and it would say reuniting. Is reuniting a word? No, it's not a word. So in order to stop the bully, we have to add a bodyguard. So we double the letter before the ending. And now the bully can't do anything. It can't get to the U. So the U gets to say its short sound. And what would this word say?
Running.
Good. All right. So you have to kind of enforce the fact that there is no getting around.
How did you get that word to just completely disappear in one stroke?
Oh, there's a trash can at the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's also just on the board thing. You can write on the board,
Yeah.
which no one is ever supposed to be doing. And so that can get in the way, but there's a little eraser, and if you just click the eraser, then kids can't write, because otherwise, you know, it's fun to scribble. All right, so next one, what's this say?
Hop.
Very good. All right, now we want to add an ending. Does this start with a vowel?
Yes.
So is it a bully?
Yes.
All right, so if you just added this to the end of the word, it would say oper. We don't want it to say oper. So what do we need to do?
Need a bodyguard.
You need a bodyguard, and the bodyguard is going to be the same letter that's already there. So you double the P. Now the bully can't get over. So what's it going to say?
Hopper.
Hopper.
Good. All right. Now here's the thing. Sometimes you're adding an ending that does not start with a vowel. For example, less. So if you're adding an ending that does not start with a vowel, you don't have to do anything. You just add it on, and then what word do you have there?
Hopless.
Very nice. So it's good to switch up doing it to use the ones that are not bullies, because otherwise the kid will start to think, oh, no matter what we're doing, we're just doubling the letter before the ending. But they're not. They have to make sure and look and see whether or not the ending is a bully and means that. All right, so I'm not going to go into the entirety of the second bully rule B, but what I'll say is the important difference between the two is that in the first bully rule, you don't want the vowel to say the name, and in the second bully rule, you do want the vowel to say its name. So we'll just do it really quickly since you guys have learned that. So this deals with the magical silent E words. So the magical silent E makes the vowel say its name. So what would this say?
Hope.
Very nice. So if you're trying to add an ending, does this start with a vowel?
Yes.
So is it a bully?
Yes.
So for this, we want the vowel to say its name, but since that E is there, the bully doesn't get to make the vowel say its name. So the other way to deal with a bully, instead of adding a bodyguard, is just to walk away. So the E walks away. Now the bully's being helpful. We get the vowel to say its name. And what's it say?
Hoping.
Hoping. Very good. So we want the vowel to say its name.
What's the logic of I want the vowel to say its name? How does that?
Because it's magical silent E words. So it's words where the vowel needs to say its name.
Okay.
So it's kind of confusing if you try to learn them both at the same time, but once you get the first one down, and you're really good at adding a bodyguard to stop the vowel from saying its name, then when you go to the second one, the magical silent E walks away from the bully, and then the vowel gets to say its name.
So is it true that whenever you add the suffix, you always want okay, so that's where you said preserve the base word. I think is that part of this, preserve the base word, or is that something else?
Yeah, I think that can definitely apply here. Yeah, it's also, you can occasionally think about these things in like the adult ways that you may have learned them as a kid, like bully rule A. The first one is just double the consonant before a vowel ending, and then the second one is that you remove the E. So sometimes you can just break it down in like a less kid-friendly way in order to realize what's going on. All right, good. So nice. You guys have already made it through a fair amount. Already on concept 9, it looks like. Okay. we're running a little short on time here, but do you guys have any questions for me? It can be about any part of the program, the books, the timing, anything.
Well, one thing that has not yet become entirely clear to me, there are so many series, and the back page of the lesson plan is the scope and sequencing, and I guess that answers a lot of the questions, except it's very, like I said, there's so many books and so many series that it's not yet clear to me exactly where to put a student. For example, I tutor a student, and I'm using some of Steve's books, and I've only taken a portion of the program, so that's why I'm taking this whole program. But I'm not clear exactly where to go after the series that I'm in.
Well,
so
series go through the entire program.
So what?
Most of the series have books that go through the entire program, although if a kid gets kind of like stuck and a book is really, really challenging, you can go to another series in order to read a book that doesn't go up a level in order to practice the level they're at. In general, I feel like Steve will probably talk to you guys about this, but the books kind of depend on age. The most classic is the Tales of Youth. That's the one that just goes straight through and kind of can be used with anyone, but is great for like 1st through 3rd graders. Some of the more advanced ones are like the Moonlight Tales for boys and Tales of Mystery for girls. Was a way of doing that for the higher kids, because those are longer chapter books. So even though the words might be easier, they're just longer. They've got a lot more in them. And then Tales of Adventure is kind of another younger kid series as well. And then there's, for super advanced kids, there's a Pep Baker, which is about a college student. It's more of a regular novel.
Can I jump in here really quick, Tara, because this is new for us. So Steve's been developing a what we call a schedule guide, and it does exactly what you're asking, Bruce. Is it walks through the program series by series, and it says if you get to the end of the series and you have these issues still happening on, here's where you jump into another series to get the same. I mean, what Tara says is exactly right. And then and so you'll have this, it's this schedule. There's 4 different flows of the schedule that you'll see at the end of the program. It's too early to introduce this. It's confusing to bring all this in right now.
Yeah.
What you want to focus on is your skills and your procedures and your error corrections. Everything else right now, forget about it. It's just like, don't worry about the books. Don't worry about where they're going, what the kids look like. It's just like, don't worry about it. It'll come together. You have to get the procedures down. You have to get your sounds down. You have to get your corrections down. And if you have those down, the rest of it will make sense. So trust the process, I guess, a little bit, which is not probably what you want to hear, but it's true. I've seen so many tutors, really, try and get ahead of themselves. And it's just like, just stick to the knowledge you need to know, and the rest of it will become clear. It's only next week and it'll be all done.
Okay.
Okay, great. Oh, and then one other thing that I talked about yesterday that I did not talk about today was the corrections, which is another really important part. So there are 2 ways to do the corrections. So the one is if the child is echoing and you point to B and they say D, because that's a very common mistake, is that instead of saying, no, that's not right, don't do it that way, you want to say, you have D, I want B. And then so does that make sense? The you have this, I want this. And then the other way of doing that is if like a child's reading a word and they read it incorrectly, you can say, you said D when it's a B, and you cover it up, and then, well, you can't really cover things up anymore, but you can put your mouth over it or just have them redo it and say, is that what you see? So just to get them to give it another try. So it's less about telling them they're wrong and more about giving them another opportunity to try again. And that's also in the manual, hopefully. All right, let's see. Anything else anyone wanted to talk about, or anyone else want to review? Sounds quickly here before we end? Okay. All right. Well, I will be doing another session tomorrow at 5 if you guys are interested in joining. And we might work on a couple of the other earlier concepts along with the sounds.